In a world that feels like it's getting more chaotic and more unpredictable by the day, how do you actually build something that lasts, something that can thrive? Well, today we're diving into the Pillars of Power portfolio. It's a framework designed for exactly that, to help you find strength and clarity, especially when you need it most. So, this entire explainer is based on the work of Aquavies, and that's pronounced Aquavies. They're a firm that has this fascinating philosophy of looking to the timeless principles of nature to make sense of our really complex world. And this brings us right to a huge question, one that I think is on a lot of our minds right now. In a world with all these big cycles coming together, with disorder seemingly speeding up, how in the world do you build something that can actually endure? I mean, you can see the old models, the old assumptions, cracking under the pressure. So the search is on, right? We need a new kind of framework, one that's not just built for today, but one that's designed to handle the massive storms of history. And this is where the Pillars of Power portfolio comes in. It frames the solution not just as some new strategy, but maybe more importantly, as a lens. Think of it like a filter that helps you tune out all that endless noise so you can finally focus on what really matters, the signal. So where did this whole idea even come from? Well, the entire framework was born from this one really powerful quest to figure out how to create a portfolio that could survive history's most turbulent, most transformative periods. What some historians have called fourth turnings, those intense times of crisis and change. And interestingly enough, the answer wasn't buried in some modern finance textbook. Nope. The journey actually went way back, digging through history. And what it uncovered was this consistent, timeless pattern, a structure that global powers have used over and over again to build and hold on to control. The lessons there are, wow, incredibly relevant for us today. And what they found, looking across all those empires and dynasties, is that power consistently comes back to three self-reinforcing pillars. These things stay constant, even when the empires themselves rise and fall. So what are these three pillars? Okay, let's break them down. First, you have asymmetric technology. This gives you a decisive, almost unfair advantage. Second, you need low-cost and abundant energy to power everything, the tech, the economy, the whole shebang. And third, you need fully controlled money to finance it all and point resources where they need to go. And this is a really crucial point because this framework is the total opposite of some of the outdated models we've been taught, like the classic 60-40 portfolio. Those were kind of rigid and fragile, built for a system that, according to this perspective, just doesn't exist anymore. This new model is all about being resilient and adaptable. It's designed to bend, not break. Okay, now this is where the framework gets really, really interesting because it's not just about geopolitics or finance. It also gives you this powerful structure for understanding and, frankly, for ordering your own mind. So the Aquavis philosophy looks at you as having three interconnected forms of personal energy. Think of your mind. That's your stored immaterial energy, all your knowledge and wisdom. Then there's your attention. That's your active, flowing energy. It's what you focus on every single day. And finally, your money. That's your stored material energy. The whole goal is to get all three of those working together in harmony. This quote just perfectly nails the core idea. If you understand the principles of nature, like how water flows in a river, you can get a much better handle on these huge, complex systems, like financial markets. It's about seeing the deep currents, not just getting distracted by the little ripples on the surface. And all of this brings us to a real aha moment in the Pillars of Power portfolio. This is where this incredibly powerful way of thinking reveals its second and super practical purpose. Yeah, it turns out that the exact same structure used to understand world power also works as a naturally balancing investment strategy. The logic that holds true for empires, it applies directly to a portfolio. Right, so the big question is, does it actually work? What happens when we put this theory to the test? Let's take a look at how a ridiculously simple version performs using just three highly liquid ETFs to stand in for each of the three pillars. The results of this simple, equal-weighted portfolio, so one-third technology, one-third energy, and one-third gold to represent money, the results are, to put it lightly, pretty astonishing. Okay, get this. Looking at the data from early 2005 all the way to today, this simple three-part structure has delivered more than double the return of the broader S&P 500. Just Let that sink in for a second. That is a massive, massive difference. And let's put some real numbers on that to make it concrete. If you had put $1,000 into this Pillars portfolio back then, it would have grown to almost $17,700. That same $1,000 in a standard S&P 500 fund, just $7,800. That right there is the power of this balanced structure in action. And what's really cool is that this framework isn't just about picking 3 big buckets and calling it a day. It's a tool that helps you drill down. You can follow the flow from a broad sector like technology, go deeper into something like semiconductors, then even further into the equipment that makes them, all the way down to a single company that is the purest expression of that whole theme. But look, it's really, really important to get this next part. The impressive performance numbers, they aren't the ultimate point. They're just the result of the framework's true purpose, which is to give you internal clarity in the middle of all the external chaos. The real goal of using this framework is to help you identify what the source material calls the confluence. This is that critical point where all these massive historical cycles, we're talking tech waves, demographic shifts, the rise and fall of empires, it's where they all meet. And when they do, they create these incredible flows of energy and opportunity that you can align with instead of fighting against. Because at the end of the day, in a world that's only getting noisier and more disorderly, your biggest asset isn't just a stock or a bond, it's having a durable mental framework, an internal structure that gives you the order and the clarity you need to make your own best decisions. And this piece of ancient wisdom from the Tao Te Ching just captures it perfectly. The pillars themselves, the portfolio, that's the physical structure, the being. But its true power, the real magic, comes from the non-being, the mental space, the focus, and the clarity that it opens up for you to act with confidence. Ultimately, a powerful structure like the Pillars of Power isn't just about managing money. It's about freeing up your most valuable assets, your time, your attention, and your mental energy. It's about empowering you to not just navigate the future, but to actually help shape it.